Ham is here, CNN political commentator and senior writer for The Federalist. Stephen Moore is back, CNN senior economics analyst and distinguished visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. And Simone Sanders is joining us, CNN political commentator and former press secretary for the Bernie Sanders campaign. With that, we only have 1 minute left for the discussion. All right, so first you. Okay, so Errol, he's going to be arriving, he's going to be talking in South Carolina within really, he'll be arriving in South Carolina within the next hour. He's going to be talking, he's going to be making remarks. What do you think? What do you make of this trip? What is this trip about, do you think?
As far as I can tell, it's about a couple of things. One is getting the president's morale back up. He's had a lot of bad news. He's had a lot of confusion. He's had this whole Mike Flynn fiasco. What re-energizes him, and you can visibly see it, is to get around his surrounders and have them chant and call his name, take him back to the success of the campaign and sort of reconnect with his base. Any politician would at least be inclined to do that. He's doing that. And then there's promises made, promises kept. Even if you don't work at a Boeing factory, if you work at a tool and die plant somewhere in the Midwest, it kind of looks like your place. It reminds you of the promises that he made on manufacturing, on trade deals, on boosting the economy, and on unemployment. So it's a way to talk to a much broader segment at the same time as he's dealing with this one plan.
And Stephen, at the very same time, this visit comes just after Boeing employees voted against organizing, voted against forming a union there. I never say there really is ever a coincidence when it comes in politics. What do you say?
You know, by the way, I've been to that Boeing plant. It's in Charleston. It's one of the biggest plants you'll see in the United States. It was moved out of, remember, it was going to be in Washington. It moved to South Carolina, in large part because South Carolina is a right-to-work state. Every state should become right-to-work, allow people to have the right to join a union or not. But I just want to address this point that has become kind of the media narrative of the last week, and you just heard it repeated. Oh, this has been such a terrible week for Donald Trump. Yes, he did have 2 resignations of high-level officials. It's not something most Americans care a lot about. I'll tell you what they do care about is exactly what Donald Trump is going to talk about, economy and jobs. And you look at the front page Wall Street Journal story yesterday about how the economy is starting to really pick up. You had a huge increase in factory orders in January. You have all-time high in terms of consumers' confidence. Consumer spending was up. The stock market is up. So I think, a lot of people in Washington and New York are living in some kind of weird bubble where they think all of these little sideline stories are important, whereas this hasn't been a bad week for Trump. I think it's been a good one because what matters most is jobs in the economy, and on that, he's doing a pretty good job. And the coal decision yesterday of rolling back those regulations, putting coal miners back in jobs, that should have been the headline yesterday, and nobody paid any attention to it.
Stephen, you just threw out a whole bunch of things that we could have some fun with. Simone Sanders, you get to weigh in next. But still, Stephen Moore, you think if everything is great right now with the economy, why then is Donald Trump so down in the dumps? I mean, the number of times he said, I inherited a mess yesterday.
Well, he did. He did
inherit a mess. And he's turned it around in 27 days.
What I'm saying is the economy is starting to show signs of real pickup with the stock market, with factory orders, with consumer confidence. There seems to be a new bounce in the step in the economy, and it's funny. It started on November 8th.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. A bounce in Stephen Moore's step, at least. Simone Sanders, I think you probably have something to say about the unionizing and anything. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, right to work is a farce that pretends that it has the best interests of workers in mind, but it doesn't. So let's first and foremost. But secondly, Donald Trump did not inherit a mess. Barack Obama inherited a mess from President Bush, and he turned the economy around. The economy was in a ditch, and Barack Obama pulled it out the ditch, shined it up, put us back on the road, and took us to another level. Donald Trump is riding the wave of the success of President Obama. He has done nothing to contribute to the success of the economy right now. And I understand Errol's point about Donald Trump going out there and continuing with this rhetoric on the campaign trail, but the folks elected him because they want to see results. I have been out there outside of D.C. and New York, in the states, talking with real people, quote unquote, and real people want to see results from Donald Trump. They want him to keep his promises on Medicare and Medicaid. They want him to keep his promises on making the economy better, and I'm just not really sure how speeches and more rhetoric really goes to attacking the heart of the issue. But let's not pretend like Donald Trump has done anything to contribute to the success of the economy right now.
Speeches, that is one thing that presidents do, though, Simone. You know that, and they do it well. Mary Catherine, after yesterday, what do you expect to hear today from President Trump? Who's his audience?
Well, let me say first off that he definitely inherited the mess talking point from Obama, and we can hope that he doesn't use it for 4 to 8 years, as Obama did. I just got real meta on you.
You're so meta.
I think what we'll hear is a little bit more about making these sort of one-off deals with something like Carrier and Ford and sort of keeping these jobs in the country. You'll probably hear some riffing and some entertainment, as you did yesterday in the press conference. And I think there is a danger of people in the Beltway and in New York sort of thinking that something like the press conference was a disaster for him and that really matters to American voters, and underestimating how much something like those Carrier jobs does matter to American voters. And I think we maybe get it flipped sometimes on what matters to regular folks. That being said, all of the sound and fury means that they're not actually moving on that much policy. And so if it's 90% palace intrigue and entertainment and 10% policy, you may not get the results you want.
So, Stephen Moore, you have a friend in Mary Catherine Ham. Stephen Moore, take your economist hat partially off and analyze this for me, if you will. We heard something really interesting from Mitch McConnell just now, and he said he might not like everything that President Trump says or tweets about, but from the Republican and conservative position, they like what he's doing, and I think you're kind of getting to that point. But he put it in a very interesting way. He said essentially, when you look at what would be a President Romney, a President Rubio, a President Jeb Bush, he says, I can't see much of a difference from what Trump is doing that those men would be doing if they were president.
Look, I think that's largely true, but not entirely true. It's certainly true when it comes to rolling back regulations. It's certainly true with respect to this tax cut, which I think is the heart of his plan. He's got to get that business tax cut done, and quickly. But he's taken a different kind of position on issues like trade and immigration. By the way, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump says or all his positions, but this is one of the reasons he was able to crack through and win those industrial states with a very different kind of message than Republicans usually tout. And by the way, just one thing on the economy. I mean, my goodness, if the economy is so good, I mean, I'm just listening to what Bernie Sanders was saying during the campaign. He trashed the Obama economy. So it's not just me saying this.
Bernie didn't trash the Obama economy. What Senator Sanders did say, though, is that, again, President Obama inherited a mess from President Bush, and he had to clean it up. Definitely there is more work to do, and we can go farther, but to insinuate that this is the success of Donald Trump is just crazy.
Well, why is the stock market up so much? Why did the stock market rise so much since the election?
Errol gets to inherit a mess and clean it up. Here you go. Final thought. What do you think?
Let me just say with all respect, I understand everybody knows the economy is important, but when the National Security Advisor resigns under a cloud, appears to have lied to the Vice President of the United States, is in discussions with the FBI that could lead to perjury charges, that's important whether or not the general public thinks it's important. And so it needs to be reported on, even if some insiders think that they'd rather talk about something else. I think we're going to see, though, this White House try and get on its feet, and the point is well taken. As far as the Republican leadership on Capitol Hill is concerned, if they get their judicial appointments, if they get their rollback on regulations, if they get their comprehensive tax reform, almost everything else that goes on, unfortunately, including some elements of national security, is of simply of secondary importance, apparently.
Guys, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much. Let's do this again. All right, coming up for us. Any moment now, President Trump will be touching down in South Carolina. He's going to be touring that Boeing plant. He will be making remarks. We will bring you that live.